Bem-vindos ao Debate Brasil, podcast da Unipol, Universidade da Polícia. No contexto do Seminário Internacional Futuro do Estado Brasileiro, o Ativismo Judicial em Debate, que aconteceu nos dias 23 e 24 de agosto de 2024 no Rio de Janeiro, na Academia Brasileira de Filosofia, promovido pelo Instituto Arrecife, com apoio da FAPESP, da Secretaria de Ciência e Tecnologia, de outros parceiros. Nós recebemos como conferencista de abertura o professor Istvan Stumpf. Istvan Stumpf é membro do Conselho Consultivo Estratégico do primeiro-ministro Orbán. Sua extensa carreira inclui serviços no comissariado do governo, responsável pela mudança do modelo das universidades. Também foi juiz do Tribunal Constitucional da Hungria e vice-primeiro-ministro, liderando o gabinete do primeiro-ministro. É também o fundador da Fundação Zazadeg, o primeiro think tank da Hungria, onde atuou como diretor por 2 décadas, entre 91 e 2010. O professor Stumpf é professor sênior do Instituto de Ciência Política da Academia Húngara de Ciências desde 1987. Atualmente é professor de Direito Constitucional e Ciência Política na Faculdade de Direito da Universidade Széchenyi Istvan e na Faculdade de Direito da Universidade Eötvös-Loránd. Ele possui graduação em Direito, mestrado em Sociologia e doutorado em Ciência Política. E nós vamos fazer essa entrevista em inglês. So, thank you very much for coming here coming to Brazil, and it's a great honor to host you in the seminar and also here in this chat, in this podcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I am the second time here in Brazil, and I enjoyed very much the seminar and also to talk to the different kind of people. So it is my honor for the invitation.
Good. Please, Professor Stumpf, tell me a little bit about your education, your intellectual background, your biography, and how was your role that you played in the Hungarian judiciary system in politics? Tell us about.
It's a long history. I was born in a very small village, which is the German origin village nearby the Slovakian border, the east part of Hungary, more than 250 kilometers from Budapest. It was a very close society, very Catholic and very workaholic oriented. So I enjoyed my childhood, work a lot in the farms and in different kind of places. And my parents, they belongs to the working class, really. Mm-hmm. My mother working for the farms and the cooperatives, and my father working the big factories. Mm-hmm. And I have got 2 other sister and brother. So and finally I graduated the secondary school in Sárospatak, which is the historical town, like mini Oxford in Hungary, because the tradition. But it changed my mind. I was very much mathematical oriented, mm-hmm. But in these years it changed, and I am getting the humanistic history, literature, and the others. So that was the reason why I went to the law school in Budapest. And during the law school, I also joined a small group of people who would like to learn more, not just from the subjects and from the literature which provided by the formal education, but doing other things. And after the university, as a young professor and a young teacher, I established the so-called Bibó István College. István Bibó, he was the minister during the 56th revolution in Hungary. And his name was an hero in political science and also the law studies. And we started to do that, but at that time, the Communist Party not allowed to use this name. Mm-hmm. At the very beginning of this college. This college established 64 people among these people was Orbán Viktor, Kövér László. This Orbán Viktor right now, he is the minister of the Prime Minister of Hungary, and Kövér László, he is the president of the House. So there was the Fidesz generation were socialized in this college, and I was the teacher. They were my student that time, and it takes the middle of 80s.
Okay.
And after that it was a very important role for this generation, because the socialization, that was some kind of intellectual preparation of the system changing in Hungary. How to change the system. Nobody expected that the Russian leaving Hungary. I mean, left Hungary. But finally it's happened, and Orbán Viktor, one of the big speeches in the Heroes' Care, very much saying that the Russian should leave Hungary because we would like freedom and independence. And that was a very risky situation. Yeah. And I think at that time, all the people in Hungary got some kind of feelings about the new leaders, the new Fidesz, which means that young Democrats. And they wouldn't like, they introduced the age limit in the movement. They wouldn't like to allow that the Communist Youth League members moving from the Communist Youth League to the Young Democrats. And that was several years it was existing, that finally they abolished that. But this year was very interesting. It was a renaissance of the Hungarian civic society in the middle of 80s. There was so many circles, civic circles, student circles, and the others. And that was the conflict education period of this generation as well. They could use later when they became the party. And then we arrived, the system changing, and the Fidesz went to the election, and finally they got just a few mandates. It's been, but I am not follow the politics. I made a decision that I am not going to join that kind of things, because it was not very much appropriate for my behavior and my way of thinking. And I stayed at the university teaching and doing research in the Research Institute. And also I went to the US in the scholarship, the John Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. And also I was a German Marshall Fellow, and also we got an invitation, several things. But it was a learning process for me, especially abroad. That I came from a small village, which was imaginable that you are going to go around around the world. And also during the university years, we took a Greyhound tour in the United States, which was a very limited opportunity. And also we traveled around in the Western Europe as well. So I tried to collect as much knowledge and information about the world as possible as a university student, later on as a young professor there. So I teach the theory of state and law, sociology, and political science. But that time the political science was prohibited, and that's the reason why we
in the 80s.
Yeah, we tried to use some kind of other opportunity how to do that. And then I established the new political school, especially for the new generation of politicians, because they didn't know anything about the politics. And that was the reason why I went to the US and tried to collect as much information as possible, which is usable for creating the new school, task-oriented and also case study-oriented, so the different type of teaching than the traditional teaching method used to be in the universities. And we also started to do some kind of research on electoral policy. So we got so much information about that. And sometimes I met, as I mentioned, I am not joined the Fidesz, never be the member of the Fidesz, but I supported then as a director of college and so on, because the Fidesz was established in the college when I was the director.
Okay.
And half a year after the establishing, I also left the college, and the Fidesz also left the college and find an independent place because there was some kind of conflict. Those students who are not very much involved in the politics, and those who very like the politics and would like to change the world. So I, in 1996, Orbán Viktor asked me that we should provide some kind of governmental plan if the Fidesz is going to win in the next election. And we did it, and that was called Governing 2000. And I made several interviews with the previous government people and also doing some kind of research deeper about the actual governmental structure. And we used the German model to introducing the Chancelleриan type of governance.
Okay.
The Chancelleриan type of governance, meaning that the German model, the Chancellor is a very important man, he provides some kind of background structure of the Chancellor, how to help him to be a leader of the society and the leader of the country. And we did it, and finally, the Fidesz won the election. It's a very narrow majority, but Orbán Viktor invited me to be a member of the cabinet. So, and we together selected the ministers of the new government.
Yes.
And that was the reason why I became the minister of the Prime Minister's office, which is the deputy prime minister type of position. And I was responsible for the whole government operation. And we set up the structure like a strategic research institute inside the Prime Minister Office network. And also there was the communication center, because the communication became one of the most important things there. And we had a Referatura system, which is a very special German origin system, where there was different kind of a group of people who monitoring the activities of the ministries, and they sending the report to me, and I am summarizing them and collecting and give the answer and also the advice to the Prime Minister. So that's happened to between 1998 and 2002. But finally, the Fidesz lose the election 2002, and I went back to the Research Institute, which was the first think tank in Hungary. I established the first think tank in Hungary. That was the end of century. That was the name of the foundation, Szijjártó Szóda and Századvég. And also we established some kind of week periodicals as well, publishing different kind of things. This is not that, but the Századvég is also very similar then. And I did several research there, and but not involved in the politics, but doing research. And every year we published a book about the achievement of the social liberal government.
Wow.
They did critical view. They didn't like that, and it was a huge book, 7 big book, and it's helped the opposition, the Fidesz, just to understand what's going on and to form the strategy the next election. Finally, 2010, it was a very important date because the Fidesz was able to win 2/3 majority, which is the super majority in the Hungarian parliament. And it's allowed the party to change the constitution. Because if you would like to amend or to change the constitution, you need 2/3 majority. And parallelly this, Orbán Viktor and the parliament asked me to be a member of the Hungarian Constitutional Court, the justice of the Hungarian Constitutional Court for 9 years period, because the period at that time was 9 years. And the parliament should elect the justice with 2/3 majority.
Okay.
So that's very important guarantee that consensus behind. Yeah. And I spent 9 years in the Constitutional Court, regularly go to the US, the Federalist Society invited the Central and Eastern European justices, several of us, and we formed the European Judicial Society. So it was a very interesting years. And also, we heavily criticized the judicial activism of the previous constitutional court leadership, and the new constitution was passed just after the election victory 2011.
Okay.
And this was the amazing time, because it's how to interpret the new constitution, what is the relationship between the previous constitution, the new constitution, and the interpretation framework, and with a 2/3 majority of the government saying that, okay, I have got the power, I do what I want. And sometimes there was a conflict between the Constitutional Court and the government, and it was not, because several friends was the government, and you have to make a decision that where is the limit of that kind of activities. But finally, I finished my term 2019. And then I went back to the university, but I am parallelly teaching the university when I was the justice. It doesn't matter that I can manage that. And also after that, I got a new responsibility, because the prime minister asked me that we have to change the whole Hungarian university higher education system. I became
heard about you.
Yeah, I became the state secretary of that kind of things. So I managed the whole process. 21 university became.
It was a university reform.
Yeah, that was the university reform. 21 university became not state-owned, but foundation-based university. The foundation has a board of trustees, and that was the owner of the university, and making the strategical decision about the university economical and professional things. But of course, the university autonomy also was a very important part of the things. The rector of the university, he was the leader of the university, but we have to cooperate together. It was a very interesting experience, because it was the COVID time, and I visited all the universities, talked to different kind of board of trustees and leadership. So I gained so much experience about that. And also parallel this, I got another task to establish the new university, the totally new university in the Tokaj area, which is my
where you belong.
And the Tokaj hegye, it's a wine. The two feature. One is the wine education, the other the teachers' educations, and I think it was very successful. We set up the new university, and I was the president of the board of trustees. But 2 years later, I left that, and I got a new responsibility to be a strategical advisor.
But why you needed to make this change in universities, this reform? What was like not running well in the system?
Because there was the tendencies that the teachers not teaching quite well, and the students wouldn't like to get so heavy teaching, because there was some kind of compromise, the compromise of minimum.
Exactly.
And we
have this here.
I would like, and I have a personal experience, more than 40 years teaching experience in the universities. I know that this is not just a theoretical experience, but the real practical experience. And I would like to destroy that kind of agreement between the university teachers who would like to teach really big. Of course, the salary was not very high. That's true. And that's the reason why they are looking for some other job, and not very much concentrating on their teaching activities and universities activities. So there was not a good combination of teaching and researching, and also the involving of talented guys to the research work and the educational work. So we have to change something. So I think, and this provided the opportunity for the universities to build a bridge between the economic communities and the university community, especially the research.
You wrote down about this transformation. There's some literature in English or other English that we can.
I can.
It's very important because not just in Brazil, but all Occidental countries. There's a huge rise in the universities that, as you told, not a compromise. Lex minimum and something like that, and ideologies so strong, especially in the humanities. And we in Brazil have a huge challenge in this topic.
That's happened, and that's happening in Hungary. It was very interesting that just a few years later than the system changing happened, the university students was much more national-oriented people, much more right-wing thinking people, very important, the national identities. But later on, then the public media is going to be playing a very important socialization role. They moved a little bit left orientation, and right now it's also changing a little bit. So I was the trained sociologist who very much investigate the political socialization of the new generation. And I know that if the political system not able to integrate the new generation, they are going to go the loser, not a very long time later. So that's very to understand the character of the new generation, Z, Epsilon, and other. I think that's one of the biggest challenge for the teachers as well in the university, the professors, and that was one of the reasons why we established the MCC, the Matthias Corvinus College, which is not incorporated in the Hungarian higher education system. This is the foundation-based activities, but they started to deal with the students in the very beginning, in the elementary school, secondary school, and then the universities. And there are different forms of how to manage the talent and the tutorial type of activities, how the students is going closer and closer to the professors, and we got some kind of much more direct investment from the university students. So it is a huge enterprise right now.
Okay,
it's cost so much money as well, but the MCC regularly inviting different kind of professors from abroad. For example, Angelica also participated. Also participated in
Angelica Gandra Martins, teacher over there.
There was the family research conference there, and as far as I know, she's coming to Hungary at the public service university as well. And there are several very well-known professors coming and spending half a year, 1 year, or just a week. So it depends on what kind of activities. And I also decided that I would like to form the new working group in this MCC, dealing with how to manage the state and the political portraits and the rule of law question harmonization. So I would like to utilize my personal experience on the public administration, the government, the university experience, and also the justice experience, and that's could be some kind of summarized heritage for the new generation. I did my best the last time, so if I am going to finish, because I am retired formally, I reached the retired age, and it's formally I am the retired people, but I am much more active.
Which age you have to be retired
65.
in Hungary? 65. But it's compulsory?
It's not compulsory.
Okay.
Not compulsory, and expect if you are a judge
Okay.
In the ordinary system. That's happened with my wife. She's just retired because she spent more than 40 years in the court, in the capital court, and also the others are dealing with the bankruptcy and the liquidation.
It's very
And I have got 4 children. And
nice, really nice.
And my wife, she's a very supportive and very critical. She is the most important critical figure for my life. So that's the reason why it's very easy. But it's a very stable and emotionally secure background. It's
nice.
It's very important if you would like to do something.
It's interesting when you told what you learned in the older generation to do what you are doing, what you did, especially in universities, because it's the reform moment in the 80s. Some caught my attention how you were doing something besides the Russians, like doesn't matter if they stay over there or no. It was important to continue because there are great literature about we don't know exactly if Soviet Union is true or not. It's like so nebulous in that time, but you had to do something continuously without thinking about them.
In Hungary has a very special situation. The general secretary of the Communist Party was János Kádár.
Yeah.
And everybody used to characterize the Kadarism, the regime of János Kádár, that it was the most happiest barrack in Central and Eastern Europe, which means that Kádár allowed to more freedom on the economical side, like the farmer, the private things doing, and the others, and also in the cultural side, you have got the opportunity to go abroad every 3 years, and you can
cultural interaction.
Yeah, you can read different kind of books and films. You can watch it. So that's if you are not dealing with the politics. That was a compromise.
Okay.
And the 68 generation, which was the so-called big generation, they make a compromise. They accepted that.
Okay.
But the Fidesz generation saying, no, I am not going to accept that kind of a generation that I have no political rights, I have no freedom, I have to follow what the communists or the Russians saying. And that's the reason why in the early 80s, the university students started to think about how develop some kind of strong civil society. The example came from the Polish example, the Solidarność.
Yeah.
We had a very close relationship with the Polish universities. And
like Wałęsa.
Yeah, and Orbán Viktor wrote his dissertation about the Polish case.
Oh, wow.
And that was some kind of guideline for how to build the civil society, because it was quite clear that if the 10 million member Solidarity was not able to win against the communist regime, we, a few opposition and the university students, what should we do? And finally they decided, or we decided, that we are going to strengthening the civil society, forming civic circles, learning a lot about the past, especially the 56 revolution and what's happened before the Second World War, what is our cultural heritage, and how can we use, it's very important, how can we use the law against the one-party system?
Okay.
Because we were taught that the law is the instrument of the politics. And we said, no, not the instrument of the politics. The law is the instrument of the civil society. How could you defend yourself against the politics and against the bureaucracy? And that's happened. That was the case study of the Young Democrats before they went to the politics.
But constitutionally, afterwards, you took German as a model?
Yeah. The constitutional revolution happened after the Second World War in Europe. And I think the European intelligentsia they were very upset that there was two revolution. That's the fascism and the Bolshevism. And we were not able to stop that. The whole legal system allowed that they could get the power. And that was the reason why they started to write a new constitution where the fundamental rights became the part of the constitution. And the Constitutional Court has the right and the responsibility to defend that kind of fundamental rights against the state, not allowed that they over-occupy the scene. And I think the result of that kind of things was that sometimes the court, especially the Constitutional Court, over-occupied those kind of area and territory, which was the area of the parliament, the elected member of the parliament. And that was the coup d'état in the court, when they just would like to manage the country governed by the judges, which is not allowed. The judges just making the decision using the different kind of constitutional norm or the laws, not writing the laws and not doing decision instead of the parliament. And that was the huge discussion in Hungary at the very beginning of the system changing, where we followed the German model. The German model was the most strongest model among the constitutional courts, which means that the Constitutional Court has the right to abolish, to annul, to strike down the law which was made by the parliament.
Reform the law.
Yeah, the former law. And also that kind of decision was erga omnes, which means that everybody should implement that kind of decision. And this provides a very important role during the system changing of the Hungarian Constitutional Court as well, because the parties starting to lose their legitimacy because they were not able to solve the problem. They are fighting each other and the people didn't like that kind of fighting. And the Constitutional Court
had to overpass
and it's above that, and sitting in the Olympus and sending the message that we are defending the rule of law and you have to follow that guideline and got the legitimacy, public legitimacy at that time. But it was not. It was quite clear that it was a judicial activism. So. And there is the discussion in Hungary that it was necessary because there was some kind of gap in the politics and the political parties, which is the key player of the modern politics. They were not able to fulfill that kind of requirement that the people would like to see. And that was the reason why the judicial activism, the Constitutional Court, got more room for maneuvering. And according László Sólyom, who was the first president, a very charismatic president of the Constitutional Court, he developed the idea of invisible constitution, which is, he just used this form one time in the parallel opinion to the death penalty. But this kind of expression, the invisible constitution, dominated the first 10 years of the Hungarian Constitutional Court living. And that was the reason why when the Fidesz came into the power and changed the constitution and passed the new fundamental law, saying that this is over, the invisible constitution is not playing anymore. There is the written constitution. You have to follow the written constitution, like Scalia, which is the textualism and the originalism, and saying that the historical constitution, which our historical public law origin, we have to incorporate the modern decision-making process of the constitution. It's not very easy work. It's very hard. It's a very hard intellectual work to identify those parts of the historical constitution which usable in the modern way.
But this idea of invisible constitution it's an open opportunity to the strong power of the Supreme Court, of the tribunal. That's it, or it was the idea that gave too much attributions, like judicial power to the judges.
Let me speak about one cases in Hungary and these issues. During the electoral campaign in 2010, the Fidesz promised that those kind of compensation which the socialist economical leader got because they lose their position, they would like to reduce that very heavily, and also using some kind of extra tax for that, 98%.
Wow.
And they did it. And the Constitutional Court saying that, no, it's not a good decision because it's a retroactive decision. So decided that goes back for 3 years or 4 years. It's not allowed because if we are using the retroactive type of decision making, it destroyed the whole system of the law. And that's we didn't discuss that 98%. Okay, it's 98%, but not retroactive, but in the future.
Okay.
But they get very angry, and they decided that we are not able to fulfill those kind of promises which we did to the public, and that's the reason why they modified the constitution, and they say that the Constitutional Court has no right to investigate the so-called economical issue like taxation and like a budget issue, because the Constitutional Court hasn't got so much information which is important to
decide
the decision-making process on the economical side. So that's the huge decision. So if you have enough power in the parliament, you can regulate what the Constitutional Court and the other court doing, and that's happened. And also there was another big decision saying that the decisions of the Constitutional Court, which was made before the new Constitution, 2011, not valid anymore.
Okay.
You cannot able to use that kind of the decision. Not valid anymore as a decision, but the consequences of the decision is valid. It's a very controversial decision, but it's interesting, and that's also saying that. And the other very important decision: if I am as a parliament going to modify the constitution, for you as a constitutional court has no right to investigate the content.
Okay.
Of this kind of modification, just the procedure. If the procedure's violating the rule, yes, you can abolish that. But if the content saying that you have got 10 million forints, you have no right to do that, because this is the two-thirds majority decision making, the constitutional modifying authority decision. So that was the very important thing. So if you have enough power in the parliament, you can do that. If not, I think there is the huge competition between the two organs. And the separation of the powers means that the parliament, the executive branch, and the judicial branch depends, but they have to cooperate each other. This is also the constitutional requirement.
Even to the equilibrium, minimum equilibrium, you need that. But let's coming to like present days or the Viktor Orban era. Hungary is an expression of alternative political project to all over the world, and then why it pays attention even in Brazil. Sometimes it characterized, I don't know if it's correct, as a populist project. How do you see if it's correct, And what do you think about the future of this kind of project? Because sometimes it was united, like some leaders that trying to do similar things in their countries, no, like Orbán and as others in the world. Is that exactly the expression is correct? Populism? How you describe this?
I think it's too general. Tell me what kind of politics is not populist. Every politician would like to get the political support from the peoples. That's the populism. During the campaign, promising different kind of things that not populism. What is the character of the populist? I think all the big nations leaders using that kind of argument that how could get some kind of support from the people, the public.
So generally, populism means the strong character of the leader that puts ahead. That puts besides the institutionalization of the country. But as you participate in the transformation, the recently transformation in Hungary, it don't means exactly that, because you try to do strong constitutional reform to don't depend properly of the leader, but also keep it, even if the leader is not anymore over there.
I think the opposition in Hungary, the liberal opposition in Hungary, regularly criticize the ruling party that over-centralized the power.
Okay.
Which was not allowed by constitutionality, they said. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how do you think that they over-centralized? Yes, of course, all the political powers would like to get more support and more power if they are existing. So I think that kind of situation, which in Hungary we have no presidential system. We have a democratic parliamentarism, which say that the parliament after the election is going to elect the president and the government. And if they are not satisfied with the government, there is the non-confident vote.
Okay.
But in Hungary and in Europe, we introduced the constructive non-confident vote, which means that if you are going to replace the prime minister, you have to nominate in the same procedure the new prime minister. And it's required just an absolute majority, 50% plus one.
Okay.
That's the way how to change the prime minister and, of course, the general election. But our system, that's true, moving toward the semi-presidential system.
Okay.
The prime minister has much more power informally than it formally was that. But the constitution changed the last time when said the prime minister has the right to define the future policy of the country. And he has the right to nominate the ministers and to change the minister without any consultation.
Okay.
And the parliament has no right to introduce the non-confident vote against the minister. It's just the right of the prime minister. That's create him a huge power, and that's the
stable
reason.
Conditions to rule the country.
That's the reason why in Hungary, after 99 till 2024, the whole government was able to fulfill their terms. There was no change. There was no extraordinary election. But the first Hungarian Prime Minister, József Antal, he passed away in the middle of cycle.
Okay.
but the new prime minister was able to fulfill the whole things. And also there was the change in the youth China, the socialist. So I think it's a very interesting thing that the Hungarian political system is the most stable political system in Europe, of course, and I can imagine in the world.
Okay.
And this is not an authoritarian system because it has an institutionalized basis and constitutional background. And if you are not able to keep the support from the parliament side, not able to manage the majority, the super majority, probably you are losing that kind of very strong position. But right now, it has a very strong position. But after the last European election and the local election, something changed. The new party appeared in the scene, which got 30% in the European election.
Which one?
It was a Tisza. Tisza is the river in Hungary. There are two big rivers. One is the Tisza and the other the Danube.
Okay. Then.
And the Tisza and István Tisza, he was the very well-known prime minister in the last turn of century, and it was a good solution of the name of the guy who became the leader of this kind of movement. I don't know. This is the new party, and it got seven seats in the European Parliament.
Is it left or right?
It's a much more left. Okay. And this is an oppositional party, but who knows? Because nobody knows about that. This party just criticizing the Fidesz, but not offering the very complex program when you could characterize that this is left, right, or center. But his origin, he was the husband of the former justice minister of the Orbán government.
Okay.
But they divorced.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why he started to a new career and the revenge. But he socialized in the Fidesz circles and utilized those kind of
knowledge,
advantage, money, and so on. But he changed their mind, his mind, and he
made his own movement.
Established, it's a movement. So that's the very important message to the Fidesz before 2 years before the next parliamentary election, that there are several people who dissatisfied this kind of achievement. This is, if somebody could get four times super majority, it's a huge achievement. Yeah. But I can imagine that the people just thinking about that, the same people, the same policy, we would like to change some kind of changes.
It's how long? 4 years each?
4 years. 4 years, yeah. Every 4 years there is the parliament period.
You were telling about this new movement, and now when I enter in the ideological question, we were walking to the studio, I showed you Visconde de Mauá, a statue, how Brazil liberal root is quite strong. In Brazil, like it was confusing between conservatives, liberals, socialists. It's like it's not easy to explain Brazil. But now I enter in something interesting because Viktor Orban once told about illiberal democracy. What does it mean? Because it's so interesting, this expression to us and to all over the world. What means illiberal democracy?
To understand that kind of expression, let me goes back a little bit the history. As I mentioned to you, the Fidesz, the Young Democrats, they were radical, liberal, sometimes anarchistic movement and party. It's the beginning of the system changing. It's early 90s. And they much more close to the liberal camp. Mm-hmm. And Glof Lambsdorff, who was the foreign minister of Germany and the president of the Liberal Internationale, he thinks that this guy, I mean, Orbán Viktor, he will be the future of the liberal leaders. And he very much supported Orbán Viktor. And Orbán Viktor, at that time, it was late 90s, he was the deputy president of the Liberal Internationale. And after that, in the Hungarians, because the Hungarian circumstances changed, and the Viktor moved, and the party also moved mostly from the liberal camp to the national conservative camp. And he developed that kind of policy, which based on our tradition, our nations, and how to defend the national sovereignty. That's become that. If you are asking what is the real feature right now, the Fidesz is, I think, the patriotic, conservative national party, which would like to save the family, the national community, the national identity, the borders of Hungary, and reunite the national minorities without changing the borders. So that's he used in Tusványos, it is in Transylvania, and every year used to be the youth camp then, and he regularly delivering the huge speech every year, this year as well. And that time he used the illiberal democracy, which I do not think that was a very good expression to explain what they would like to them. But Zakaria used that kind of expression to this kind of Latin American countries. But as far as I know, the reason why Orbán used this expression, that he would like to explain that this kind of liberalism, which is existing now, this is a very aggressive liberalism. So they would like, it is far from the original liberalism. And he would like to go back the original liberalism, which is the freedom, defending the fundamental rights, but not so strictly, and not say so. That kind of liberalism, which right now existing in the mainstream in Europe, they are saying just what I am saying. That's the truth. Nobody has the right to override and overstay what I am saying, and this is not the liberal attitude.
But you think it's a sign of rise of liberalism in not just in Hungary but in the world?
Sign of
a crisis of
crisis. This is the real crisis of the
liberalism.
liberalism. That is the huge debate about the content of the liberalism and the liberal democracies. Why the democracies is not so important in this kind of discussion? Why just the so-called the liberal? They use the liberalism as a weapon against the conservatives, against the sovereignist people. Very similar than they use the rule of law as a weapon against these countries and against these leaders. But sometimes they are much more deeply violating the rule of law's requirement in the US, I mean the European Union, because they just not following those kind of rules which based on the European Union. The bureaucracy is going to make a decision, not the elected people, and the bureaucracy is very much violating the rule of law. And I am I'm going to give an advice. Why don't the member state countries going to start the procedure against the European Committee and the European bureaucracy, because they are every day violating. If you look at how they handled the COVID and how they get the vaccine, what was the agreement behind the scene, and who paid for it. So there are several scandals around there, and they are much more violating that kind of reason.
Can we see that not just this new movement, but also the European Union is a kind of challenge to make an stable constitutional politics in Hungary and in even the other countries in European Union? Because I'm thinking it's just not just set up the inside the country, but you have also one like a great organization, like a community that you need to manage, following rules and make politics that's so huge, so complex.
Yeah. After the last European election, the expectation was that the so-called right-wing parties could get much more support than they had, but finally not happened this way. And after that, Orbán Viktor initiated the new fraction in the European Parliament called that kind of Patriots for Europe. Mm-hmm. The Patriots for Europe, it's a very good solution because it's showing that we are for Europe, but we would like to strengthening the patriotism, the national sovereignty, the constitutional identity, these countries. And Orbán Viktor is the obstacle of...
when it was?
He is an obstacle. He stopped that kind of world government project.
Yeah. But when they launched the Patriots for Europe?
It's just 2 months ago.
Okay. Just now. Okay.
After the European election. After the European election. And this is the third fraction in the European Union. And not impossible that the Italian Prime Minister Meloni is going to join this group. Mm. And if she is going to join this group, probably it could be the second biggest group, not the socialist. After the CDU, the Christian Democrats is the first group. Yeah. So that's we will see what's going on, but I think lots of things should change, which is important. Right now, the biggest fighting in Europe between the so-called sovereignistic approach and the federalistic approach.
Okay.
There are so many big country parties and leaders would like to set up the European Union, like an American Union, which is the federalistic structure. But the other people would like to save the national identity of different kind of countries, small countries or biggest one, and they saying that the founding father of the European Union talking about the cooperation of the nations, and the more different kind of orientation is important, and the different culture is the advantage of the European Union. If you would like to unify it, and the bureaucracy is going to make a decision instead of the elected leaders of the different kind of countries, I think this will be the end of the European idea.
Which do you recommend to understand what happened? You told me about this generation after the 68 generation that didn't accept this pact with the Russians and something like that made strong changes in the 80s. What do you recommend, which is the intellectual base of this generation, and also how to understand literally what happened recently in Hungary? Who was writing down what's the books and something just to have a mind what happened and what's happening?
I think if you would like to save your countries, save your history, save your tradition, and save your future, you have to socialize the new generation to save the traditional values, and also the most important basis of the society. This is the family, and in Hungary as well, the religions. And the church playing a very important role. I think the 1,000-year history of Hungary, the church was one of the most important institutions which saved the culture of Hungary, and give the opportunity for the new generation to form their ideas how to continue that kind of things. So that's important. And also form some kind of civic society, not NGOs, civic society where the people has a direct relationship and people has a value-based activities. And this could build the new type of society, and the solidarity of this kind of groups is very important. And that's the basis of how to go toward. And then if you move to the political area, you have to develop strong institution and strong media, public media, and also that kind of social media is important as well. So I think that's the biggest change in the politics, the mediatization of politics and personification of the politics. Mediatization means if you are not able to communicate what is your goal and idea and future plan, you are not existing. And if you are not able to identify the leader who could send that kind of message because he is a charismatic leader, you're also losing. So that's two important things, the mediatization and the politicization and the personification of the politics is the new phenomenon. This is very much based on the so-called network society. The network society is meaning that there are so different kind of connection between the people, especially the young people. Look at this one. Nobody in the street without smartphone. And if you would like to send a message using the smartphone techniques, I think it's much more quicker and faster than any type of communication. And it's very hard to fight against the fake news. The fake news, sometimes the virtual reality playing much more important role than the real reality. That's the reason why it's so important to build the civic circles, where the direct relationship empirically suggest what you are saying or criticize what you are saying, because you have a direct relationship with the people. You are saying and you are watching your eyes, and not just unidentifiable person who is on the net.
But in about writers, philosophers, and political thinkers, do you recommend? And for instance, we were speaking about Marton Békés and others.
Marton Békés, this is the commentator. This is the new periodical of the Hungarian new generation, and very much saying that if you look at one of the first article about the political philosophy, the renaissance of the political philosophy, this is very important to interpret the whole framework when you are living. So that kind of books and the periodical is important. And also Balázs Orbán, who is the political director of Orbán Viktor, published two books about the Hungarian strategy. The connectivity. This is the new strategy of that. It was published 1 year ago, and it is in English as well. So he is going different kind of place and showing what the Hungarian specialty, how to think about the future and how to participate in the different world. We are a small country, but the big nation. So that's we would like to keep a balance between the two worlds. It's not very easy to do that. Historically, it was not very easy, and not very easy right now as well.
To finish, I want to put a question that our friend Alexander Marx helped. He told when Milan Kundera, the Czech writer, defined a small nation as one whose very existence can be called into question at any moment. A small nation can disappear, and it knows it. Do you think that the
Kundera?
Milan Kundera phrase. Do you think that the fact that Hungary is a small nation puts Hungarian in a position where they can see things that the big nations of the European Union cannot in terms of the nation question?
Yes. I think the last few years experience very much showing that. And also the Central European countries has their special heritage. And if they are able to cooperate, and the economical growth is sometimes it's much more faster than the west part of the Europe. So, and much more sensitive, the European culture, the Greek culture, and also the Romanian culture and the Jewish culture. And this is the very important integrative part of that kind of nation culture. And we have to solve that, and we have to, because we are small nation, we could cooperate all the different kind of players. That's happening. That's the reason why Orbán Viktor, under the huge criticism that he is able to talk to the Chinese leaders, the Russian leaders, and also the Ukrainian leaders, and of course very close to the American, probably the next president, Donald Trump. So that's the interesting challenge, but it will be very cautious because it's a dangerous game. Especially because those people who would like to set up the new world order, the old world order, the Pax Americana, is not existing anymore. The new multipolar world is existing, and also the BRICS and the global South, India and the other countries would like to participate to form the new world order, and not just dominated by the US, which very much depends on the Chinese.
But you can you find it in Brazil? How you and Hungarians in general look to Brazil? Because at the same time, it's a huge country in proportion, something like that, but so confused and don't put his potential power against the other countries. At the same time, during the last federal government of Jair Bolsonaro, looked very special to Hungary as this model of a stable new project of constitution, more conservative, more family.
So yes, there are a few similarities, but lots of differences between Brazil and Hungary. But I think you have the huge resources, natural resources, and resources in your brain of the people. But how to collect that and how to use that to build the new workable strategy for the country, that's missing. That's what I am thinking, that there is not enough deep intellectual discussion about the situation and about the future plan. And I think that's the reason why, if we could continue the cooperation between Hungary and Brazil, we could learn each other. Lots of things we could learn each other, and that was one of the reasons why I'm coming. And I try to summarize when I'm going back home my Latin American experience, and also learning. And I don't know that your book, the new book, which was published these days, we could translate Hungarian or English, and to learn about the historical roots. It's very important. Your approach is very important. I don't know that you should know that. I just look at your book, and I see that you regularly use the Scruton. And Scruton is a good friend of mine, and was a good friend of mine, and also much more good friend of my daughter and her husband. And he was the person who delivered the speech in my house during the wedding ceremony of my daughter.
Wow. Wow.
So he was very close to Viktor Orbán regular, because Primbuk College he was the teacher of.
He taught in I think in Czech Republic during the Iron Curtain
and when he came to Hungary regularly had a breakfast with Orbán Viktor.
Good.
So and one of my first visit as a minister of the Prime Minister's office goes to Britain and talk to Scruton. It was a good memory.
Good. So,
and there is the Scruton revival in Hungary. There are a pub called Scruton, and there is the Scruton Intellectual Organization. So we did lots of to save his memory.
Fantastic. So thank you very much again for this real lecture about Hungary and about European Union, about Constitution, and it's very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation.